Fecha para aquele para mim, por favor. So, good afternoon. My name is Amanda, and today I'm gonna talk about serial killers. Everyone's asking why did I choose this thing. So, pet seminars in foreign languages, they can be of anything you'd like. So I decided to bring something different from what we are used to see in electrical engineering. And so my mother, she's a psychologist, and she has this book about serial killers and how they behave. And I read it, and I thought it was interesting to bring to everyone. So here's a few topics of what I'm going to talk about. Who is the serial killer? Why are they different from regular killers? The types, the cycle of the killing. Who is the victim? Some psychological aspects. And a real-life case of Jeffrey Dahmer. And the bibliography I used. So who is the serial killer? They're criminals that commit a series of homicides in a period of time. This period of time must be of a few days. If someone kills 15 people in a few hours, he is a mass killer, not a serial killer. Most of them suffer from antisocial personality disorder. So they have an impulsive behavior, they contempt for norms and indifference from the feelings of other people, but they're not crazy. They have the sense of reality. They know it's wrong of what they're doing. But of course there are the mentally ill ones, but there are only 5% of the non-serial killers were actually crazy. Most of them are men. Female crimes, they are actually, they don't bring so much publicity because they tend to kill people looking like natural causes. And they have no scars, disfigurations, or any physical signs. You can look in the street and say, oh, that guy is a serial killer. I must be away from him. So why are they different from regular killers? The lack of motive. They don't have a motive to kill. They don't choose someone because these people did something to him. He just wants to kill, and the victims are chosen by chance. It can be anyone, and usually by a stereotype. Like a serial killer likes to kill blonde women. So it is not personal. And they kill to exercise power and control over another person. They feel more powerful while killing. And they don't feel like it's a person, it's an object to him. Types of serial killer. There are 4 types. The visionary, it's completely insane, psychotic. This is the crazy one. He doesn't have the sense of reality. He hears voices inside his head and obeys to it. And the other 3 types, they're just unsocial. They have that unsocial disorder. And they know it's wrong what they're doing, but they just don't care. There's the missionary, he needs to get the word rid of what he judges immoral, excuse me, or unworthy. Hitler was a missionary. He wanted to get Germany rid of Jews and black people because they thought they were unworthy to live there. And there's emotional kinds, they kill for pleasure. They're the ones that actually like killing the most, and they are the most sadistic and cruel. They're the libertines, they kill for sexual pleasure. The act of killing, brings them sexual pleasure. Cannibals and necrophiliac are also part of this group. So every serial killer has a cycle. The golden phase is when he starts to lose the comprehension of reality. He still knows it's wrong to kill someone, but it doesn't feel to him like he can't do that. There's the fishing phase where he starts to look for his ideal victim, that is usually by a stereotype. And the gallant phase is once he found his victim, he's gonna seduce her and deceive her. And the capture phase is when the victim falls into his trap. The murder phase or totem is the peak for the serial killer, is the killing itself. And the depression phase is what comes after the murder, and so it ends the cycle and it starts all over again. He gets back to the golden phase. There are two terms used when talking about serial killers. There is the modus operandi and the signature. The modus operandi is the way he uses to kill the victims and the things he does to get rid of the body and to escape, to doesn't be noticed. And there's the signature. The modus operandi, it can't changes as he becomes more experienced. But the signature, it never changes. It's an individual characteristics, is something that he likes to do. To make it different to you, I brought two examples. The first, husband and wife are home when a serial killer breaks in. He drugs the husband, making him black out, and kills the wife. And the second, the serial killer enters a house, but there's only the wife. He makes her call her husband with a lame excuse to bring him home. When he arrives, the serial killers kill the wife in front of the husband. The first one, it's the modus operandi. He just wants to kill the wife and get the husband out of the way. The husband doesn't matter to him. But in the second, it's a signature. His signature is killing the wife in front of the husband. So he has to bring the husband there to complete his ritual. And that symbol over there is the symbol of the Zodiac killer. He was a real killer, and he wrote letters to the cops after his killings and put this symbol at the end of the letter to say it was him that was killing. Who is the victim? They're chosen by chance or by stereotype. They're usually physically weaker than the killer, which is easier for him to control the situation. They're usually less fortunate people, like prostitutes, vagabonds, and hitchhikers. People will take more time to notice that they're gone and start looking for them. And female killers, they are called black widows or death angels, because they usually kill husbands, lovers, elderly, or terminal patients. So the conclusion is that there isn't any specific type of victim, and the only prevention is to pray, to not become a victim. So a few psychological aspects. The terrible triad is presented in most of the childhoods of all the killers. They all presented these three things when they were children: urinary incontinence in advanced age, sadistic abuse of animals or other child, property destruction, and pyromania. And most of them suffer through child abuse. It can be physical, sexual, or emotional, and familiar or social isolation. So when a kid spends much time alone, he starts to creating fantasies and daydreams, and to feel the loneliness. And for serial killers, the fantasy becomes the center of his behavior instead of mental distraction. So everyone has fantasies, but it's usually to distract your mind, and they are simple. But for serial killers, they're more complex and violent, and it becomes real to them, so they actually achieve this fantasy. Their behavior, they only feel control when they kill the victim, so they kill fast to feel the control and then mutilate the body later, or when they are killing, so they extended more time to the suffering of the victim. And there's the dissociation. They create another personality different from the violent one, so he can live among normal people, so he doesn't get caught right away. There's empathy. He comprehends pain and humiliation. He knows the victim is suffering, but he likes it. It's what he wants. There's intimacy. For being not social, they don't get intimacy in normal ways. They can't relate to people normally. So his ritual is the maximum of intimacy he gets. And repetition, they like to replay what happened. So some of them record videotapes, take photos, or take souvenirs from the victims. and they have no compassion. They can't feel compassion for being, for having this personality disorder. A few statistics of the known serial killers and his victims: 84% of them are Caucasian, and 93% of them are men. 65% of the victims are women and Caucasian, most of them. And 90% of the serial killers are between 18 and 39 years old. So this is a real-life case. Is Jeffrey Dahmer. He's the most famous cannibal in the United States. He was born in 1960, and he was always a weird child, and he liked to play with animals and cut them and take chicken bones and put it in acid to make them whiter. So he was always kind of weird. With 18 years old, he made his first victim. He gave a ride to a guy and convinced him to go to his house. When the guy wanted to go home, he killed him by choking and cut it in several pieces, his body, and buried in his backyard. So he started his cycle of killing. His modus operandi was that he went to gay bars and chose a man and convinced them to go to his house. Once they were there, he killed the man by strangulating, and then started his ritual. He was cannibal, so he killed and ate the pieces of the bodies. He liked to make meatballs with human flesh. And necrophilia. Necrophilia is sex with dead people. And he kept body parts in his house for several days in the fridge to eat and other stuff. And to get rid of what he didn't want, he used chemical products and acids so he can flush it in the toilet. He kept souvenirs in his house. He liked to keep skulls in his house. He performed lobotomy in a few victims. He opened up the brain, took a part of it. He wanted to create zombies to serve him sexually, but it never worked out, of course. And in 1991, one of his victims escaped. Two cops found a man running with handcuffs on, and they stopped him to ask what's happening. And he said he woke up in a weird guy's house and he was drugged. So the cops went there to check. The man that was Jeffrey, he opened the door calmly, said he would get the keys to the handcuff. And then the victim remembered he had a knife and warned the cops. When the cops started looking in the house, they found several pictures of the killing. They found a head in the fridge. And in total, they found 18 different pieces of people in his house. When he went to court, to the justice, he tried to say that he was crazy, that he had a mental illness, but nobody believed it. They knew that he knew what he was doing. He knew that it was wrong. So it was estimated that he killed 17 people in total. And most of his victims were gay and black. In 1994, he imprisoned a black schizophrenic prisoner that thought he was the son of God, killed him, crushing his head, and said that this black prisoner, he heard the voices of God in his head, and he said that God told him to kill Jeffrey. So here's the book I used it to make the seminar. It's very interesting if anyone would like to read it. And there's also a website that tells stories about serial killers. And thank you if anyone had any questions. The book it tells about serial killers like I did in the beginning, and have several cases of real life Jeffrey Dahmer is one of them. It's what I thought was the most interesting, so I brought it here.
I have a question too. I'd like to know what kind of serial killer is most easily captured by the police.
I don't think there is any specific type. It's just some of them. There's one killer, I can't remember his name right now, but he wouldn't be captured if he hadn't called the police and said, "It was me," because he wanted to be known that he did it, but the cops couldn't catch him. Any other questions? So thank you for coming.